E-cigarette sales in Ireland grew by 478% last year, generating €7.3 million, and yet there's still a significant cloud of uncertainty surrounding the devices. Healthier Smoking is the only manufacturer of e-smoking products in Ireland. It was set up by ex-smokers. I'm joined in studio by Stephen Ryan, chairman of Healthier Smokers, and by Professor Robert West of the University of London, who studied the impact of e-cigarettes. Good morning to you both. Professor West, I wanted to go to you first, because there are many debates about e-smoking and whether it's a good substitute for tobacco, or does it actually act as a tool to help people finally give up puffing one way or the other. What is your finding?
Right. We've looked at very closely at what's going on in England because we survey the population actually every month and have been doing for about the last 7 years. So we've been tracking the rise of e-cigarettes, and also been looking at whether they actually help smokers to stop. And what we've found is that in the population, smokers who use an e-cigarette as part of a quit attempt are indeed more likely to stop smoking conventional cigarettes. And quite a lot of the e-cigarette users then actually stop using e-cigarettes. So they're using them a bit like they would use nicotine patches or nicotine gum. But you've also got a lot of e-cigarette users, I shouldn't say smokers, vapers, who are using them as well as smoking to try to cut down the amount they smoke. And that, in fact, the number of people who are currently doing that is somewhat greater than the number of people who are using them who have stopped smoking. Yeah. So one thing I should say, just on the issue of the safety, I don't think there's any controversy about the view that they are much, much safer than conventional cigarettes. And I think that's important because a lot of smokers don't know that.
Now, a couple of questions occur to me. One is that smokers who are still smoking tobacco and then also smoking e-cigarettes, I mean, they could be using it to double the nicotine hit.
Yeah, but they're not. So we do have data on that. So, in fact, we've known for many years that smokers tend to titrate the amount of nicotine they get from whatever product. Because remember, there's a lot of people also using nicotine patches and nicotine gum as well as smoking as a way of cutting down. And what we found is that their nicotine intake stays about the same, from which we might infer that the amount of tar and toxins they're getting, which are the really deadly things in cigarettes, is actually reduced. Okay.
Any evidence that young people attracted by, the more elaborate e-smoking devices might start to vape with e-cigarettes and not bother with tobacco, but then maybe in their 20s, having become addicted to nicotine, go on to smoke the real thing?
It's early days, but at the moment there's no sign of that happening. What you find in surveys, again large surveys, is that quite a lot of young people will try e-cigarettes, but a really tiny proportion who are not already smokers or trying to stop will go on to continue to use them. It's currently running at around 0.2 to 0.5%, so it is very small. Yeah. We also don't know, obviously, whether even with that small number, whether there are people who would have smoked cigarettes
anyway
at this stage anyway. So at the moment, not one doesn't want to be complacent, but at the moment that's not looking too much of a problem.
The last question really is about people smoking their e-cigarettes or vaping their e-cigarettes. Currently, if you're smoking anything, I think that publicans in Ireland will try to ban them, and I'm not sure what the official position is on buses and so on, because it's not smoke, it's not doing other people any harm, the vapour that's coming out of them. Do you think that a smoking ban on e-cigarettes is the right way to go? So if smokers can tolerate not having a smoke in those non-smoking areas, well, they shouldn't have a vape either.
Well, I suppose it depends on whether you consider it a sort of a moral issue about using a nicotine product, or whether it's a safety issue. And the reason we brought the smoking ban in and thank very much to Ireland for blazing the trail there, otherwise I don't think we'd have got it here in the UK. The reason it was brought in was actually, obviously to protect the health of non-smokers, and that's not going to be an issue with e-cigarettes. So I think there's a fairly broad consensus among, let's say most of my colleagues, that to put in a legislative ban on indoor use of e-cigarettes in the same way that you do with cigarettes, would be disproportionate. But on the other hand, of course, it would be perfectly reasonable for any establishment, if they choose to say, well, actually, we're uncomfortable about having people vaping in here. And so, we will make our own rules. But I think a national legislative ban would be problematic.
Professor Robert West of the University of London, thank you very much for sharing that study with us. Now, Stephen Ryan is chairman of Healthier Smoker. Stephen, good morning.
Hiya, how are you?
How did the company start? What was the motivation behind it, and who were you smokers, ex-smokers?
Yeah. Well, what it was is myself, I was on 40 a day.
40 a day?
Yeah, and like everybody else, times were tough. And apart from the health side of things, they were very expensive. A friend of mine sent me the e-cigarette from Hungary, and which did help me to stop smoking cigarettes, which I eventually did over a 4-month period of time. Now, what happened was because the juice that was used in the e-cigarette...
Maybe... for people who've never smoked, who've never seen an e-cigarette, who don't know how it works, maybe you'll explain.
Yeah, well, what you do is you get a handheld device. I've actually brought one with me.
Okay, let me have a look at that. It's about the size of a fountain pen.
Yeah, exactly. And the top there, you've got a clearomizer, which is a burning, which heats up the element, which heats up the juice. Here we have some samples of the juice, which is manufactured in Waterford.
Okay. So you put the juice in yourself?
Yes.
Into this little container?
Yes.
Which is part of this thing. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it is the length of a fountain pen, so it's longer than a cigarette.
It does.
It's bulkier than a cigarette.
Yes.
It cannot be mistaken for a cigarette.
No, definitely not.
Okay, so you put this so-called juice in,
yeah,
and it creates a vapor. You inhale the vapor, which gives you the nicotine hit.
It gives you a nicotine hit. Exactly.
What was wrong with the Hungarian stuff?
Well, it came from Hungary, but the juice itself it came from China.
Okay,
and it left me a burning in my throat, but it did help me. And I stopped smoking straight away. So
you didn't have to have tobacco from the day you started on the e-cigarettes. That's what you concentrated on.
You see, Pat, you're not. No one is addicted to tobacco.
I beg your pardon?
You're addicted to nicotine.
Okay.
Nobody's addicted to tar or toxins. So but people don't need them. So people still need their nicotine hit.
So if you like to compare it, the e-cigarette is to cigarettes what methadone is to heroin. It's a way of getting off.
Exactly. They come in different levels. As you see in the bottles, there are numbers. We start at 24 milligram. They go right down to 0. They go down 24, 18, 12, 6 and 0.
So you might start on 24 because it's a lot of nicotine in it, and then wean yourself off over a period of weeks or months.
Exactly. Well, what happens is if somebody was under one of our retailers, we have numerous retailers around the country. We also supply Super Value. If somebody gets into one of our retailers, the staff there will know and ask the very strict question, how many do you smoke per day? If somebody smokes 10, they have to go on a lower milligram level. Somebody smokes 40, they have to go on a higher one.
Okay, because that's a good way of estimating how strong the addiction is. If you're on 40 a day, well, you need something strong to be the equivalent.
And if we don't put them on the correct level, they will never stay on this, and they go back to smoking a cigarette.
Now, you didn't like the flavour and the burning sensation you had in your throat from the stuff you got from Hungary, which was sourced in China.
Yeah.
So you decided, I'll do it myself?
Well, there's a couple of us got involved, and what we did was spent nearly 18 months coming up with the correct flavours. Our company produces 95 flavours, and we have 5 strengths. So it's a lot of product. And we started. And
where did you get the expertise for the chemistry of all of this?
Well, you can actually go online. It's very easy. Our juice is made up of 5 components. It's very, very simple. But it was in the method of the producing it, the maturing of it, doing it right, making sure the nicotine hit is constant. So we took a lot of pride in what we were doing. We started selling it. We started with our friends and family. We get great feedback. And we changed any negative feedback we changed. So we're actually involved in it for 2 years before we brought it to market.
Now, how do you know about the health effects of inhaling? There are 5 components. One is the nicotine, and what you're doing is you're not burning it, you're vaporizing it. You're heating it up and it becomes a vapor, and then you draw the vapor into your lungs. How do you know about the potential effects of vaporizing the other components?
Well, on the research we've done, and because the 5 components is all used in food sourcing, manufacturing, we source all our raw materials in Europe, not a source outside of Europe.
So you're saying that any day of the week, if you're in a kitchen, you might be inhaling this stuff anyway?
Well, nicotine's in tomatoes, potatoes, you know what I mean? So you're taking this stuff on all the time, toothpaste, some of the materials in toothpaste. But what happens is we just wanted the manufacture a product that would have full traceability and people could use our juice. We peace of mind knowing, well, this is manufactured in Ireland, it's manufactured under a good manufacturing practice, and our product speaks for itself. Some reason being that 95% of people who are currently smoking Chinese product smoke our product, they convert to our product.
Right, so
we are now getting orders from America. Even China have placed orders for our juice.
The flavours, you mentioned 95 flavours. Yeah. Give me an example. Well, you must have names for them, or they're not just 1 to 95.
No, definitely not. No, we have. If somebody comes in and they smoke Silk Cut, we'll give them the equivalent to that. Because it's a big decision for somebody who wants to quit smoking. You know, it's not an easy decision. So what we found is the best way to get people off smoking and stop smoking is they give them the most realistic sensation that they were getting before.
Yeah.
So we prefer for people to go, if they're smoking Silk Cut before, let's go on the Silk Cut juice. What happens is, Pat, after 6-7 weeks, their palate changes, their chest will clear up. And this is testimonials from all our customers. Their chest will clear up, and then they don't like the taste of the flavour of tobacco. Then after that, you know, some do, most don't, and they go off for other things.
In theory, though, you could do yourself out of business. Eventually, everyone will give up smoking.
Well,
but there's a huge market.
Yeah, it's a huge market, and you know, if you stop people smoking, it's a health benefit for everybody. It's a good news story because people who probably can't pay their mortgage swap the e-cigarettes and now can pay their mortgage.
How do they compare if you were to smoke? I don't know, if you smoke 10 a day, would you smoke 10 doses of the e-cigarette a day as well?
Well, you see,
like if you had one at your breakfast, one at your coffee, one over lunch, and it works out to 10, would you do the same thing? Is that typical?
Much the same thing. What we try and tell people to do is treat it with respect, you know, because it can be very handy for someone to have in their hand and overuse.
And once you buy the original device, it's battery driven, I presume, or chargeable up from your computer.
Yeah, exactly. It's much like you do with your mobile phone. You charge it up.
And how much does it cost then for the equivalent of 20 fags a day?
About 35 cents.
Wow.
Yeah.
Massive savings straight away once you've made the investment in the e-cigarette device.
Yeah.
On jobs, how many jobs have you created?
Well, we're in the process of creating 80 jobs in Waterford. We have now 44. We had a massive response. We had nearly 3,000 applicants sending CVs, coming up the factory, leaving and stuff. And what was brilliant, there must have been 70% of them was Irish, you know. Yeah. And it was absolutely fabulous. Some great CVs come on. People just have become chemists. You know, it's fabulous to see.
Well, on so many levels, this is a good news story. And Stephen Ryan, who's the chairman of Healthier Smoke,